All right, moving on now. A developing scandal as Ben& Jerry's Ice Cream Corporation could be facing brutal legal action after announcing that it'll be ending its partnership with its Israeli franchisee over the distribution of products to the quote-unquote occupied Palestinian territories, which includes parts of Jerusalem. This as Israeli and even the United States State Department officials are vowing to take action against BDS, and particularly in the 35 states that have already adopted anti-BDS legislation. So what can we expect going forwards? Joining me with more insights is CEO of the International Legal Forum, attorney Arsen Ostrovsky. Arsen, thanks so much for being with us. Now, will Israel really be able to inspire the United States government to stand against Ben& Jerry's and back these states' anti-BDS laws? The State Department has said that they oppose BDS, but they stopped short of providing details as to how specifically they would act on any of these policies.
Look, I mean, Israel very well may do that. Ultimately, it's the United States government, both federal and on state levels, who need to enforce their own laws and legislation in this case. I mean, what we have seen here is essentially Ben& Jerry's talking about social justice, but ultimately, this action is rooted in social injustice and anti-Semitism that is essentially full acquiescence to the racist BDS movement. Now, under US law, both federal and state, there are serious ramifications for such actions. On a federal level, there is possible criminal liability. On the state level, there is something like 30 plus states across the US now that have anti-BDS legislation, which could incur various punitive measures that could be in the form of excluding both Ben& Jerry's and the parent company Unilever from a public governmental contract. It can also mean, and this could be far more consequential, it could require public pension funds in certain states, including Texas, including Florida, including New Jersey as well, requiring them to divest from Unilever, where they have investments in. So there are those kinds of actions that can be taken. There's also legal action that can be taken here in Israel, by the way, where it's against the law to discriminate against customers based on their geographic location. So there's multiple angles that can be taken. And ultimately, this will be not only legal action, but also require diplomatic means, political means, and also economic means as well to fight back.
So how many states will likely pursue legal action, and which states have used their anti-BDS laws already in the past?
Look, it remains to be seen. A number of states have already tried to enforce this. We have a clear example with Airbnb, and this is something that our organization, the International Legal Forum, was quite intimately involved with when Airbnb tried to discriminate against residents in Judea and Samaria. Legal action was started on a number of fronts, and in Florida, just one state, for example, threatened to take legal action against the company as well in order to enforce that. As for moving forward in this case, it remains to be seen. It's early days, that's for sure, but there are something like 30 plus states with very clear laws that prohibit any kind of tacit or otherwise support for BDS, whether that is based just purely on settlements or in Israel proper.
And now, the State Department aside, and the federal government as well, how big of a priority is this truly? I mean, it's big to the Jewish and the pro-Israel community, but it doesn't necessarily have that much to do with politics in the West, does it?
Look, it's in many ways, look, the State Department, first of all, that they made very clear, and as has the Biden administration, that they are against the BDS, that they're against the whole campaign to boycott Israel and to single out and delegitimize Israel. They were very, very clear in the press conference yesterday about this. But this also speaks to a far broader, I think, issue that we're seeing today, including some elements in the far left progressive movements in the United States and elsewhere, using this issue really as an excuse in order to attack and to demonize and to delegitimize Israel. But the United States government has been very clear that they stand opposed to the BDS movement. I think that's important to reiterate that that's something that's very much a bipartisan commitment.
All right, well, for the time being, at least here in Israel, we can support the local franchisee of Ben & Jerry's, at least until the license ends. And I know that you actually have some ice cream right there with you now, don't you?
I do indeed. I have some Ben and Jerry's ice cream here with me. But look, honestly, it's an important point to make because Ben and Jerry's Israel, they're the good guys in this. They are an independent licensee. They are fighting back and standing up to Ben and Jerry's Global, who are trying to enforce this racist, discriminatory, and anti-Semitic boycott campaign against Israel with the acquiescence of the parent company Unilever. So Ben and Jerry's Israel, they're the good guys. They're the ones that are fighting back. And at the end of the day, it is ultimately the Palestinian people themselves who will be hurt most by this, because Ben and Jerry's also employs Palestinians. They earn exactly the same wages and benefits as their Israeli counterparts, far in excess of what they would be earning were they to be employed by the Palestinian Authority. So ultimately, they're the ones that will be the ultimate losers by this. But I think that really goes to the core of the whole BDS movement. They might talk about social rights, they might talk about peace and justice and the Palestinians, but honestly, they couldn't care less about them. They have one goal and one goal only, and that is to delegitimize and vilify the state of Israel and deny us our equal rights. And I think that's something we need to expose, we need to highlight, and certainly their actions here is something that all of us, not only those who are friends of Israel, but those who stand up for freedom, democracy, who are against racism, discrimination and intolerance, need to speak out very firmly and unequivocally against this racist BDS campaign by Ben and Jerry's Global.